Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Motor Trade Radio podcast. Powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising. With Philip Nothard and Curtis Hutchinson, bringing you all the chatter that matters.
Well, welcome to this weekend's podcast and welcome back to Phil, who's back from his holidays in Norway. I'm rather hoping you've got a present for me, Phil, from the duty-free shop.
Yeah, I think for the money I spent in the duty-free shop that you don't get a lot for, you'd think I'd bought everybody a present back. Not quite as duty-free as you'd like to think from coming from somewhere like Spain, what you get for your money. But and I couldn't bring any whale meat back because I think it's actually banned in most countries. So.
In most civilized countries.
yes. But I did have my whale, and I did have my sorry listeners, my Rudolph reindeer as well. But yeah, fantastic place, highly recommended. Fjords is one of the wonders of the world, as we know, but phenomenal thing to go and see and experience.
You're pining for the fields, are you?
Yes. It's great, but it's not the cheapest place to go. But if you do go, do expect to pay, let's say, London prices. In reality, you're not going to Benidorm for 4 nights. So no, it's fantastic. But we must give a big shout out to Carl for stepping in last week again. And I know I've had a couple of conversations with people that have listened to the podcast and found it very useful, very insightful, as always. So a huge thank you to Carl, and I think you enjoyed the editing as well, didn't you, Curtis, this time?
I did, yeah, because you left me in the editing seat, and Carl Davis was on great form, it was fun doing it with Carl because he's obviously got a different perspective from his consultancy, with wearing his consultancy hat. So plenty of lively conversation. So turning to this week's show, we're joined this week by Stephen Whitton for this month's Menable Moment, and it's all around Mental Health Awareness Week. So Steve will share his thoughts on its importance and relevance to the car retailing sector.
Yeah, so stay tuned for the midway break with that one. And next week, make sure you check your podcast feed because we'll be catching up with our friend of the podcast, Steve Young, obviously top industry guru, MD of ICDP, the Global Automotive Consultancy Group, and now the MD of Auto West London, the all-new JQ Motor dealership there, which launched in March recently this year. So we're really looking forward to hearing more about how that's going for Steve and his view on the current market.
You're listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, powered by Motors.
Headlines this week come from AM, Motor Trader, Car Dealer and The Times, starting with used car sales reach post-pandemic record in Q1 as supply concerns begin to ease. Trump's 10% concession on UK car exports offers some relief, but will it last? Hendy Group recruits 20 general managers in shift to regional operating model. After the break, we'll look at Vertu Motors being bullish about their 2024 results with turnover up but profits down. We've got news on the latest Chinese brand, yes, another new Chinese brand heading for the UK, which is already recruiting dealers. And we'll finish off with a fond farewell to industry legend, Kwik Fit founder, Sir Tom Farmer.
You're listening to all the chatter that matters on the Motor Trade Radio podcast. If you're a supplier and would like us to profile your business and reach our audience of dealer bosses, managers and decision makers on one of our dedicated supplier specials episodes, get in touch with Curtis and Philip at motortraderadio@yahoo.com.
Companies already featured in our supply specials include Generational, Tracker, MTC, Jigcar, CheckQuick, Car Care, and AutoChat. We've also got a couple of recordings in the pipeline and hope to bring you the next one soon, maybe even next week. So keep an eye on your podcast feed. And in the meantime, if you'd like us to profile your business, then just get in touch with Philip or myself. We're both on LinkedIn.
Becoming a long list to read through now, Curtis, that one.
Yeah, it's getting longer, isn't it?
It is. But as Curtis said there, we're heading over to the first of this week's headlines and over to Car Dealer. And this is on the back of the Q1 used car sales or used car transactions for this year, saying that used car sales there reached post-pandemic record in Q1 as supply concerns begin to ease, saying that Q1 used car sales surpassed the 2 million mark for the first time since 2019, and saying that performance caps 9 successive quarters of growth, and that used EVs enjoyed record volumes and market share. So kind of a good start to the year for used car sales stroke transactions, which comes obviously from the DVLA via the SMMT.
Yeah, and the headline figure is that Q1 sales hit 2,020,990 vehicles. So pretty impressive. It's a good showing. And I must ask at this stage, Phil, how did that compare with your forecast?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. 0.3% away from our upside and 3.8% away from our baseline. So, kind of predicted between 1.946 and 2,015,000. So, yeah, I'll take that considering the uncertainty that plays around the industry at the minute, which we'll get onto later.
Yeah,
But,
definitely.
fantastic result.
Yeah, I don't know if you use a crystal ball or seaweed, but it seems to be working, whatever you use.
Yes, for the minute. I'll take it for the minute, yeah. I'm getting harder and harder, shall we say, to keep on top of it. But no, I think as the article there sort of highlights there, I mean, phenomenal forecast, a result there, achieving over 2 million for the first quarter. With everything going on in the new car market, it's a great result. But I mean, more importantly, it does pull out some of that performance by fuel type, doesn't it? And what the EV market's been doing, which has been a topic of conversation on the podcast for some time for us.
Yeah, definitely. So fuel types, petrol obviously remains the most popular, rising 2% to 1.1 million units, while diesel slipped 3% to 679,000 units. And overall, ICE made up 90.5% of all used car transactions in Q1. So no big surprise there, but that's despite their combined market share falling by 2.4%. But looking at hybrids, because this is really the sort of interesting part of the market, because this is where we're starting to see some changes. Hybrids attracted record numbers of second and third owners, up 30% to 98,000 units, while 25,500 plug-in hybrids changed hands, and that was up 14% on the same period last year. And looking at BEVs, they actually recorded the highest growth, increasing by 58.5% to 65, well, just under 66,000 units, giving them a record share of 3.3% across all transactions. So coming from a low base, but we're seeing those incremental gains quarter on quarter now.
Yeah, and they do. I mean, obviously within the data, they segment it by sector as well, and saying that the upper medium exec, sports, and MPV sector were all the sectors that recorded a decline in that quarter. So a little bit of pressure on those sectors as well, but obviously that leaves the lower medium, obviously with the strength, showing that strength for the results there. But they do obviously have within this, they have your top 10, and no surprise who's at number one there as the most popular used car transaction, given it's been the number one new car seller for many decades, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it's still a classic. I'll give you the top five, Phil. So number five, we've got Mini. Number four, the Ford Focus. Number three, Volkswagen Golf. Number two, Vauxhall Corsa. And number one, as you alluded to, the Ford Fiesta with 79,617 units
So no
sold.
Chinese or EVs making into that top 10 quite yet.
Not yet,
Not
no.
yet.
No.
Give it a few years.
Maybe a couple of years' time.
Maybe, yeah, we'll see. Got to get into that used car park. But there is a closing comment from Mike Hawes, who's the chief executive there at the SMMT, saying that the used car market has enjoyed its strongest start to a year since before the pandemic, with supply fueled by recovering new car market. Critically, more second-hand buyers are opting for electric vehicles with greater choice and affordability, enabling more people and businesses to switch. So a nice little closing statement there from Mike Hawes. And moving on to the next headline and heading over to AM Online. I know last week you alluded that you were going to talk about it this week, Curtis, when you were talking to Carl, but we had the trade deal come out, wasn't it, whilst I was away. And the headline for this is that Trump's 10% concession on UK car exports offers relief, but is it built to last? That's quite a bold statement for AM there.
It is, yeah. It's a good piece. It's a bit of analysis, and there's some comments from some industry figures within the piece. So definitely worth looking at. And so, yeah, as we recorded last week's show, the announcement was due later that afternoon, and the announcement was that the tariffs on UK-made cars have been cut from 27.5% to 10% on the first 100,000 vehicles exported annually to the United States. And 100,000 is a significant figure because I think the average, or certainly last year, 101,000 vehicles were exported to the US. So it shows that the size of the ballpark now. And I guess what we need to factor into this as well is that Jaguar Land Rover, major exporter to the US, and as we know, no Jaguars are being made this year, so that they're not being exported to the US. So the mix next year is going to be fascinating, isn't it? Because you're going to have a balance of Jaguar models, Land Rover models, and of course, Mini, all very popular in the US.
Yeah, and as you say there's a few industry spokespeople commented in this piece here, and one of them is Fraser Brown, who automotive consultancy Motivise, said that he welcomes the rare win for the UK car makers, but is quick to caution that this isn't a return to free trade. It's a quota-based concession offering short-term relief that could become a brake on long-term growth. So quite an interesting statement there from Fraser, and probably reiterating what a lot of people may be thinking about some of these tariff deals that have been taking place across the globe.
And there's some interesting comments from Mike Fazal, CEO of leasing.com, who says more cars here mean more choice, quicker delivery and better leasing deals for British drivers, adding we're already seeing signs that the UK could become a key alternative market for European and global brands. So this is quite an interesting take, isn't it? Because as we record this, no trade deal has been done with the EU. And EU countries that produce cars are looking kind of more favourably at the UK at the moment rather than the US, which could see an influx of vehicles from major players like BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen and Volvo as they reconsider their reliance on US sales. And Mike says manufacturers know they can't put all their eggs in one basket anymore. The last few weeks have been a wake-up call. So, I think we are going to be seeing more cars coming into the UK, no doubt about it.
We are, yes, definitely. And heading over to motortrader.com, and there's been a lot of things happening recently at Hendy Group, but a big shift here in terms of the way they operate. They're saying that Hendy Group recruits 20 general managers in shift to regional operating model, saying that they've recruited the 20 new general managers as part of a shift to a regional operating model, which came into effect on the 1st of April, and that this the group is basically creating a new central west and east division to further enhance efficiencies, improve collaboration, and maximise positive experiences for customers. Now, we know there's been a few appointments, one of them recently being Duncan McPhee, who's gone into the business, and a few others there. So basically, this is now starting to shift following his appointment in October of last year.
Yeah, and Hendy Group, a significant player, certainly in my part of the country, down in the south. They've got 60 sites. They stretch from Devon to East Sussex and then north to Surrey and Kent. We actually interviewed Mark Busby, the commercial director, last December, and he gave us a really good update on the group, because the group has expanded through acquisition. It bought Lifestyle Europe, which really extended its footprint across the south and into the southeast. So not a surprising move here, because this divisional approach, non-centralized, clearly could work because of the size, the sheer scale, the footprint that they now have. And the vacancies actually attracted over 450 applications from both inside Hendy and external candidates. So there's been quite sort of a rigorous process there, whittling down to the 20 new general managers.
And I think really with this, you can sort of see here that probably sets them up quite well for further expansion as well once they've got these in place, doesn't it? Because they can start to then look at growing. And there's a nice little comment here from Sarah Martin, who's the Director of People and Organisational Development there at Hendy, saying that Hendy currently employs over 1,500 colleagues, and they strive to provide much more than a job, and saying that they offer a long-term career option to anyone willing to collaborate to create a high-performance culture and an environment for all colleagues to thrive, and encourage everyone to make the most of our world-class leading learning and development experience there. So really, you can sort of see now this group becoming something a little bit more significant in its size and scale as they look to redevelop. But we'll be back after this break with more of this week's headlines. But for now, we'll have a listen to this week's Men-Able moment from Stephen Whitton.
You're listening to all the chatter that matters on Motor Trade Radio, powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising. This is your weekly one-stop shop for all the biggest car retailing headlines from across the media, available on demand, wherever you are, and on your podcast feed. Next up is our latest Men-Able moment, looking at mental wealth and well-being awareness and best practice in the automotive sector. With me, Stephen Whitton.
Yeah, hi everyone, it's Men-Able Moments time again. Hope you're well. This one happens to coincide with Mental Health Awareness Week. So, and the theme this year is all about community. And we'll come back to that in a minute. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask you how we're doing. How are we doing? And I don't mean how many cars have you sold, how many hours have you sold, how good is your customer experience scores or any of that. I'm not talking about the traditional KPIs. I'm talking about how are we doing. And you notice that I've emphasised the word we. I've been putting out a few top tips this week, and that is the first one, to ask the question about how are we doing. Now, I know it sounds a little contrived and a little bit false, but I want to get leaders leading with courage. And a key part of that is asking the right questions that encourage people to know that they are in a community. They're part of a team, however small that team is, that truly cares and understands and has empathy. So the second question I'd urge you to ask, especially in your meetings, is what's got your attention now? And again, from experience, what I find when I ask that question in little group sessions, as you go around the room, is that there'll be a few laughs, there'll be a few little digs and so on, and it'll take a while for it to land because people aren't used to being asked questions like that. Because what it does is it taps into what's going on for them in their lives outside of work. Now, we still have a little bit of a leave it at the door mentality. I'm still hearing examples of that. And that really flies in the face of the whole theme around community. Because let's be honest, we are a community. And as I've said, however small or large your team is, it's a community. You're spending 65-70% of your time at work with the same people. So that is and does need to be a community. And that's noticeable in our industry, isn't it? That when anything happens or when the chips are down, we all come together and we do actually support each other. And people like me have stuck around forever. And there's got to be a reason for that. And I think the reason for that is because we're awesome and we are a great community. So what we need to do is nurture that and foster it and care for it. And like a plant, keep it watered and fed and make sure that we build on all of the strengths that we have. So I'm urging leaders, managers to step forward and lead with courage and be courageous to ask those questions that you wouldn't normally ask. How are we doing? And what's got your attention right now? So all of that stuff combines. You can get more top tips from me if you want by joining me on LinkedIn if you haven't done so already. And I'm also going to give a bit of a shout out to the little videos and articles that we have on the Motors website. So thank you to our sponsors over at Motors for keeping up, doing what they're doing and supporting us in that respect. Now, last week I had the pleasure of speaking at the Automotive 30% Club conference, and what a day. It was epic. And I think that is very rapidly becoming the go-to conference in the automotive industry. And I say that because it taps into what is important for me, and that is people. And we're talking about things like, of course, inclusion, diversity, gender balance. And last week we had a session which I was involved in on mental health and male allyship. How can we get more men engaged in, one, talking about their mental health and well-being, and two, creating an environment where we are inclusive and we attract people from all over. So there's lots and lots of work going on across the industry in various organisations. So if you're a part of that, then, keep it going. But all of that feeds into perfectly the theme for Mental Health Awareness Week this year, which is community. So if you want some help or support with any of that, you know how to get hold of me on stephen.whitton@menable.org. Would love to have a chat with you. This stuff takes a leap of faith and it takes commitment, but it isn't difficult to achieve. And you've only got to look around many parts of the industry and see where there's some amazing work being done in creating and emphasising community. And what that does is creates psychological safety and certainly begins to overcome this resounding issue that we've had for many years, that people don't open up or talk about mental health. Create the right community, create the right environment, and they do. Look forward to catching up with you again soon. In the meantime, take it easy, enjoy the nice weather that we're enjoying currently, and we will speak again soon.
Well, some topical thoughts there from Stephen Whitton around Mental Health Awareness Week. And I do urge you, if you don't follow Steve on LinkedIn, definitely worth following him, because he's been putting out a series of videos this week. And it's so closely linked with the car retailing sector and raising some of the issues that maybe don't get looked at in great detail or as much detail as they should.
Yeah, he's doing a fantastic job in creating that awareness across particularly the automotive sector and working with companies within it as well. So as say, as Stephen said there, do reach out. You can get him on his email address, which is Stephen with a PH Whitton, WHITTON at menable.org, or you can find him through majority of the social channels, particularly LinkedIn and on Facebook there. So do reach out to him and see where he can help you. But we'll head back over to the headlines now. And this week we got the latest from Vertu Motors on their financial performance, and car dealer have covered it that Vertu Motors bullish about 2024 results amid lowest new car market for 25 years, and saying that the adjusted PBT came to 29.3 million, and that was a 15.8% fall. But revenue rose by 1.7% to 4.8 billion, and that 2024 saw Vertu rebrand and a major acquisition. So a lot going on in the Vertu world with Robert and the team there.
Yeah, definitely. And a familiar theme when we compare 2024 financial year with 2023, which, as we know, 2023 was pretty much a strong year for a lot of dealer groups across the industry, and 2024 came with its challenges because of used car prices, certainly. And this report, so it's the financial year up to the end of February 2025, so it's really focused on that 2024 year. So as you say, revenues were up to 4.8 billion, so that was a rise of 1.7% on the previous year, with dealer acquisitions adding 124 million to that particular pot, while disposals and closures amounted to 40.6 million pound reduction.
Yeah, and if you do follow Robert on the social channels and you look out for things, he does, obviously, when the results came out on Wednesday morning of this week, you can pick up on the webcast. But if you look on the LinkedIn through Robert's channel on LinkedIn, he does go through some of the details, talking around their obviously results that Curtis has just mentioned there, saying that they are going through a 12 million share buyback program that was announced in February of this year, and until the end of March, 2.2 million of that program is now being utilised, leaving a 9.8 million still to deploy, and that the group's improved their trading performance year on year and delivered it in the key months of March and April, saying that the new retail market is obviously now starting to show signs of recovery, although April wasn't the best month of the year so far, was it, for new car registrations, Curtis, that you and Carl talked about on last week's podcast? But let's say I would urge you, if you do follow Robert, just to pop over to his LinkedIn there, and there's a link to the video where himself and their CFO Karen Anderson talk through the results, which will give you a little bit more detail and insight into the performance and their view on their activity.
And next headline comes from AM Online, and it is Chinese brand Changan will launch with UK dealer network in September. Yes, it's another new Chinese brand heading for the UK.
And now, just around the corner as well. Yeah,
imminently, as they always seem to be. You know, we hear they're launching, and then we're told it's within months. But before we started recording this, Phil, I just sort of scribbled down a list of new brands who have either entered the UK this year already or are waiting in the wings. And you may have some I may have missed some out. You may have some too.
Yeah.
But we've got Leap Motors from Stellantis. We've got Xpeng, and both of those have already arrived. But we're also expecting launches from Denza, which is the upmarket premium brand owned by BYD. We've got Jitor from Cherry Motors, the owner of Jaco and Omoda, and I do feel as though there's another one, but
Xiaomi as well, isn't there, that's come in, and you've got Neo that's here, and so there's a few there.
It's a list that has no end, but this is a good story from AM, and I think they possibly had the exclusive on this because I didn't see it anywhere else. But they do confirm that the Changan, who are a state-owned car manufacturer based in China, they will launch a UK dealer network and its first electric SUV, which is the Deepal SO7 in September. Now, the brand has been around for a long time in other markets, obviously domestically, but also other global markets. But this is the first time it will be coming to Europe and specifically the UK. And with that in mind, it's actually already establishing a base in Munich as its headquarters to lead those European operations. And it's already got a R&D facility in the UK based in Birmingham, and is currently recruiting for a UK dealer network manager. So a lot going on in a short space of time here from Changan.
It is, yeah. And I think, you alluded to it earlier. I think they've been going about 30 years. And just to put you a little bit of context behind that, they sold 2.6 million vehicles globally last year. So, they're not what you might call a new entrant to the automotive sector, but predominantly, they are a new entrant to the UK market. And they say there they've been moving very, very quickly. They've appointed some ex-Nissan GB operators, haven't they? I mean, Grant Richards is one of those appointments, who is the former Nissan GB network development manager. You've also got another former Nissan GB executive in Nick Thomas, who's joined the business. So, they are moving extremely quickly. Like you say, this press release came out on the 13th of May, and they're ready to set up in September of this year. So, yeah, it's going to get interesting when we start to look at the SMMT registration registration numbers in a year's time, of how long that list will be. Whether they'll just collate some of the smallers into, because it used to be, if you remember, other British others yes. or something it used to be. Yeah. I wonder what they'll start collating these as. But it's moving very quickly. So another one that you'll need to keep an eye on, and I'm sure there'll be some of our familiar dealer groups that'll be looking at taking these on as either a main franchise or a secondary franchise opportunity.
And we've closed this week with a story in the Times on Sir Tom Farmer. So he sadly died last week, and there's I do urge you to head over to the Times for his obituary, because it really does give a flavour of Sir Tom Farmer's career. He was a very colourful character, very well respected within the industry, and as an entrepreneur, pretty much, in a field of his own. I don't know if you ever had any dealings with Sir Tom, Phil. I never met him, but certainly had a lot to do with Kwik Fit over my years in the sector.
No, I haven't, no. And just looking at that, he's he built his organisation from a single tyre shop, and sold it for more than 1 billion. So, a big operator in the space there. And as you say there, he's talking in the story here about Kwik Fit being founded in Edinburgh in 1971, the year of my birth there. So, it's a phenomenal backstory to his life and what he's done. And I think you talked about, obviously, some of the things with Ford and others, didn't you, I think, with this?
Yeah, well, you mentioned about him selling the business. It was actually sold to Ford for £1 billion in 1999, and that actually netted Sir Tom a windfall of £78 million. He remained on the Kwik Fit board under Ford, becoming the highest paid director, but he quit in 2002 when Ford sold the company to CVC. for only £350 million. So it that was at a time when Ford was divesting of a lot of its businesses, and Kwik Fit was one of them. So it was this enormous business that he'd built up from scratch, and is still obviously a key player in the sector today.
Yeah, I mean, a sad loss to the sector, but what a legacy to leave behind, Curtis?
Yeah, definitely.
So, lots of headlines to get through there. As always, you'll get the newsletter on Monday morning, where you can access the full details of each of the headlines that we've kind of give you a quick overview and highlights this morning. Do have the full details of Robert's financial performance there on his LinkedIn post. And again, thank you to Carl for stepping in last week, and great job, and really good listen. So very much appreciated.
But that's all for now. So many thanks for joining us on the Motor Trade Radio podcast. We're back with a weekday special next week. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Thank you for listening to the Motor Trade Radio podcast, powered by Motors, the driving force behind multi-site advertising. We'll be sharing all the URLs from this week's headlines on Monday morning. To make sure you receive them, just subscribe to the free newsletter on our LinkedIn page. Just search Motor Trade Radio Podcast.